This is Mac from JLPTbootcamp.com, here with another N4 grammar lesson. Today we're going to talk about souda, sugiru, and gatteiru. And to set the scene, you've been out drinking with your friends, and you say to your friend, Bobu wa kibun ga waru souda. And your friend responds, Doshite? Nani ga okotta? And your first sentence, you said, Bobu wa. So bobu is Bob, and wa is the topic marking particle. Kibun is literally kind of spirits or feeling. And then ga is the topic marking particle there. And then waru is the stem of warui. So you've taken warui, which is an e adjective, take off the e, and you just have waru, and add soda to the end. And all that together means seems bad. And your friend responds, Doshite? Why? Nani ga is something. And okotta is happened. So why did something happen? And you used the structure souda. And this is a little bit different because now we're using it with verb stems and e-adjective stems, basically, to talk about appearances. Before we went over souda before, which is kind of the casual tense plus souda to report hearsay. But here you are you're using just the verb stem or e-adjective minus e or na-adjective plus souda to talk about appearances. Something seems like something. So for example, kono restaurant wa nigiyaka sou desu. So this restaurant, and then wa is the topic marking particle. Nigiyaka is means lively, and then sou desu is seems. So this restaurant seems lively. And yeah, with na adjective, you don't have to change anything, just add sou desu. But with verb stem, with a verb, you have to take the verb stem. And just a quick reminder, that's when you, for example, iku, which is to go, you change into the mas form, ikimasu, and you cut off the mas form, mas ending there. So you just have iki. So that would be the verb stem of iku. So altogether it would be ikisoda. So seems like something's going to go. And you can use this with e-adjectives, na-adjectives, verb stems. You can't normally use it with nouns, but you can use it negatively with nouns. So for example, you can say kare wa ishi de wa nasasou desu. So kare is he, wa is the topic marking particle, ishi is doctor, and then de wa nai is negative. So not a doctor, and then you take off the e adjective, e ending of that adjective, which is basically nai is basically behaves like an e adjective, and then you just add sou desu. You add sasou desu, which is kind of a special form that you need to use with this negative here. So altogether that would be, it seems like he's not a doctor. And one thing to be careful about this is with kawaii. And kawaii means to seem cute. But kawaii is actually a na adjective, not an e adjective. So you can't use this structure. You can't take off the last e, add so, and have it mean seems cute. Actually, that word kawaiso is actually a different word that means kind of pitiable, or poor thing. So if you want to say someone's like suffering or something, you can say, oh, you poor thing. Or, for example, this sentence, kanojo o kawaisou da to omoimasu. So kanojo is her, she, and o is the object marking particle. Kawaisou is pitiable, poor thing. Da is just to the part of the structure there, souda. And to omoimasu is I think this thing. To is the quote particle. It's quoting the structure before. So altogether, this kind of means like I think it's really too bad for her. I pity her is the best translation for this. Literally translated is I think she is pitiable. But of course, we wouldn't really say that usually in English. But we would say something like I pity her, or I feel sorry for her. That's how you would express that. So that's souda. And to move on to the next situation, your friend is still a little too sick now, and so you say tabimono o amari tabinai de biru o nomisugita. And your friend responds, taxi o yonde ie ni kairo. And you respond, kare ni tsutaeru yo. And so your first sentence, tabimono, is food. O is the object marking particle. Amari is not so much, a little bit. Tabenai de, so didn't eat so much. And biru is beer. O is the object marking particle. Nomi sugita. Nomi is the verb stem of nomu, to drink. And then sugiru is too much. So he drank too much beer. And then altogether, that basically means he didn't eat that much and he drank too much beer. So now he's sick. And your friend responds, which is kind of an expression of shock. And taxi is, of course, taxi. O is object marking particle. Yonde is the te form of yobu, which is to call a taxi. And then ie is home. Ni is the particle to or toward something. And then kairo is to return. So return home. So altogether, she's shocked. She's going to call a taxi and return. She's saying, let's return home. And you respond, yes, kare ni, he, and then ni is the to particle, to him, and then tsutaeru is I'll tell him, I'll communicate that to him. And then yo is the assurance particle. He's assuring her that he'll go and tell him that she's calling a taxi. And so in that first sentence, you used sugiru, and that can mean too or too much of something. And again, we're using the verb stem here, or e adjective minus the e, or a na adjective just by itself. And so here's another example. Kono boshi wa watashi ni wa chisasugimasu. So kono is this, boshi is hat, wa is the topic marking particle, watashi is I, and then ni is for, and then wa is the topic marking particle. So for me in particular is kind of the translation there for ni wa. And then chisai is small. You chop off the e, and then you add sugimasu to mean too small. So this hat is too small for me. Maybe it's big enough for other people, but for me, it's too small. And that's sugiru, very useful structure, but it can kind of, you'll notice that this is a verb. So you kind of can't really use it the same way as we use it in English, as an adjective. So you have to be careful how you use that, which means sometimes a lot of restructuring of some sentences. But to move on to the final scene here, your friend doesn't want to go, so you tell your Japanese friend, kare wa moto biru o nomite gatteiru. And she responds, honto? Daijoubu nano? And you respond, wakaranai. Ima wakai ona no hito to hanashiteiru yo. So the first sentence, kare wa, he, topic marking particle, moto, more, biru is beer, and o is object marking particle. Nomi is the verb stem of nomu, to drink, and then tagatteru is, it seems like somebody wants to do something. So it seems like he wants to drink beer, more beer. And your friend responds, honto? Really? Daijoubu? Okay. And then nano is, she's asking a question very casually here. And she wants to know, she wants to have an explanation if he's okay. And you respond, wakaranai, I don't understand, I don't know. Ima is now. Wakai is young. Ona no hito is woman. To is with. And hanasteru is speaking. So he's speaking with a young woman now. I don't know. Maybe he wants to keep drinking, is what you're trying to say. And so you used this structure, gatteiru, or usually it's used ta gatteiru, because you're using tai here, but you're cutting off the e and then adding gatteiru to talk about what somebody else wants to do. And this is kind of a unique thing in Japanese where you can't really, it's considered a little bit too direct or too rude to assume what somebody else wants. So you have to talk about it in a more indirect way, talk about appearances, instead of just saying, well, he wants this. That's a little too direct in Japanese. So instead of that, you need to talk about the appearances. So, for example, in this sentence, kanojo ga watashi to isho ni ikitagateru kadoka watashi wa shimasen. So, kanojo is she, ga is the topic marking particle, watashi, I, to is with, isho ni is together with, and then iki is the verb stem of iku, to go, and then tagateru, altogether that means wants, if she wants. And then kadoka is means is basically if or whether. That's how to bury a question that we talked about in the last video. And then watashi wa shimasen. So I don't know if she wants to go with me or not altogether. And there's some things to keep in mind that you'll probably see on the test. For first person, when you're talking about when the subject is you would use tai. So for example, watashi wa Nihon ni ikitai desu. I want to go to Japan. But if the subject is a third person, you would always use this tagateimasu. Although casually these days, I do see some people using this to talk about third person. So you see it here and there. But generally the rule is that if you're talking about a third person, you need to use gatteiru or tagateiru to mean he wants or she wants to do something. The quirk here is that if you're asking a question, you should use tai. So kare wa Nihon ni ikitai desu ka? So something to remember. Just in third person sentences, you would use tagateiru. In questions, first person, you would use tai. And one more thing to keep in mind is about particle use. So if you're using, talking about, you're wanting an object, hoshi. So for first person, you'd say watashi wa atarashi denwa ga hoshi. So notice the ga particle there to talk about what you want. Whereas third person, kare wa atarashi denwa o hashigateimasu, is you're using the o object marking particle to mark what the third person wants, what he wants. So something to keep in mind. This is something that might come up in the grammar section because it's very easy to forget the difference here, ga and o, because you're talking about different things. So do you think you have it all? We're going to do a quick pop quiz here. Can you translate these sentences into Japanese? First one, that car is too expensive. That car is too expensive. In Japanese, that would be sono kuruma wa takasugimasu. So sono is that, kuruma is car, wa is the topic mark particle, takai is expensive, and then sugimasu, sugiru is too much. So it's too high literally, but we can translate it that as too expensive. And next one, I seem to have a fever. I seem to have a fever. In Japanese, that would be watashi wa netsu ga arisou desu. So watashi is I, wa is the topic marking particle. Netsu is fever or heat, and then ga marks the subject. Ari is the verb stem of aru, to exist, for inanimate objects. And then so desu is seems like. So seems like it exists, this fever. And then last one, she wants to get married. This is talking about a third person here. She wants to get married. Not me, but she. And in English, in Japanese, that would be kanojo wa keikon shitagatteimasu. So kanojo is she, wa is the topic marking particle, keikon is to get married, keikon suru is to get married, and then changing that into the verb stem, suru becomes she, just she, and then add tagatteimasu to talk about a third person, somebody else, what they want to do. So altogether it would be like she wants to get married. So today we talked about a lot of different topics. We talked about souda, talking about appearances. You can use that with e-adjectives, verb stems, and na-adjectives. To talk about appearances, it seems like something. And just remember that kawaii so does not mean seems cute. It means actually someone's pitiable or poor them. You pity that person. And then with sugiru, that's you're changing something to mean too much of something. You've done something too much, or you can use that for too much of a particular adjective. Again, you're using the verb stem, e-adjective and na-adjective. And then finally, if you're talking about appearances about somebody else, what they want to do, you would use gatteiru with the verb stem. And some things to keep in mind with gatteiru is that for first person and for questions, you would use tai, but for the third person, you would use that structure, gatteiru. And also with particles, if you're using hoshi, you would use ga if it's a first person, but o if you want to talk about a third person and you're using gatteiru. So that's it for this grammar lesson. If you know someone who is studying for the N4 exam, why don't you help them out? Send them a link to this video, share it with them, or share it with your study group, and help them out. And if you want more videos just like this one, be sure to hit the subscribe button, and I'll be sending you a video out very soon. Until next time, have a good couple of weeks studying. This has been another grammar explanation video from the JLPTbootcamp.com premium site. There at the site, you'll find a lot of other extra goodies. For example, all of my guides, including the JLPT Study Guide Kit, which will walk you through how to study for the JLPT, as well as how to build very effective mnemonics so that you can remember kanji and vocabulary the first time you see it. I also walk through how to formulate a good test-taking strategy so you know what units, what sections of the test to focus on to maximize your points and get the best possible score that you deserve. In addition to that kit, I also have grammar guides for the N5 and N4 levels. In those guides, I go over some common mistakes that people make, example test questions, extra practice with grammar points, lots of great stuff. That's available at jlptbootcamp.com/premium. I hope to see you very soon at the premium site. This has been Mac from jlptbootcamp.com.